some days you parent good, and sometimes
and some days du ton't have had it good.
Welcome to Bring the Family Together, where we build purpose-filled families and businesses. I'm Dawn Kyle, along with my husband Tony Kyle, and we're here to talk about parenting key number 4, no guilt allowed. There is no such thing as a good parent or a bad parent. Some days you parent good, and some days you parent bad. It's only when you check out and stop parenting at all that you have a real issue.
Well, that's true. So again, we want to say that when we say that there's no such thing as a good parent or a bad parent, because there's days that you're doing good as a parent, there's days you're not doing good as a parent. There's just days that people check out, that there's some parents that absolutely check out of parenting, and what we mean by that is you're just done with it. You know, let the state take them, do all this, and you know, we don't like to joke around about that, because there's some of you might even be in that position right now. But know that there's always hope, and we've coached families that have been in what you would believe would be a absolute destructive, never going to come back together again situation, and yet they have. So there's even hope for some of you out there that might believe that you just can't parent another day, that you just can't do it. You don't know why you've got all these children. How can you do this? And you know, but God doesn't give you anything more than you can handle. So it's in you, and we would love to be a part of helping bring that out of you. But we just want you, you know, the title of this tip again is No Guilt Allowed. And we've got all these things written down here, and we want you to write these things down too and take notes. But you can't have authority as a parent and have guilt. You know, that's one of the biggest things that we talk about, is that, you know, because what essentially happens is let's say you yelled at the children, you were upset with the children, you know you overreacted to a particular situation, so you want to make it up to them. So you take them out for ice cream, you buy them all the things they want that you know they shouldn't have because you feel guilty. And they know this. They might, even if they're too young to even know what the word guilty is, you know, they get the reaction. They know it is what you're doing, and then later on they start what you think is pushing your buttons, you know, by making you feel guilty about things just so they can get things. But you taught them to do that. You teach people how to treat you. You know, whether it's your spouse or your children, you teach them how to do that. And that always culminates into a learned behavior that is either negative or positive depending on the circumstances. And certainly this one isn't a positive one.
Well, we know as parents that you cannot take on guilt and keep your authority as parents. And a lot of people, you know, guilt is a very big stronghold on people's lives. And we react out of guilt, like Tony said earlier, you know, and we need to learn as parents to take back our authority and ask God's forgiveness and receive that forgiveness. And that sometimes is very difficult, but you know, because we are so into our own habits that it just seems like it's an ongoing thing over and over again. But if we just kind of recognize, reject, and replace, you know, our thought processes and our actions that we've done, you know, things just will start turning around to the positive, and you'll see that behavior change in your children along in yourself.
Absolutely, and what Dawn's really also saying here is that, you know, part of that guilt and receiving forgiveness part is really receiving forgiveness whether you feel it or not. You know, we do things that we don't feel good about, and then we just let that dwell in us, and we don't make good decisions after that moment because we feel guilty. You need to know that you're a parent always, and that your level of parenting and authority over your child doesn't change even if you make a mistake. It will change if you let that mistake change you, and through your habits, and that's how that can affect you. So you really need to focus on that and understand that. And I think one of the things, just an example that you can grab a hold of is, you know, the next time that you've done something like that, yelled at the children or gotten upset and overreacted to them, is just to get down on their level and look at them in the eye and give them a hug and ask and tell them that you've received forgiveness from God, and ask them for your forgiveness, and then whatever it was they did that they shouldn't have been doing that you reacted to, even though you overreacted, you need to let them know that you're their parent and there's a consequence to that, and then you continue to walk in your authority. In other words, the consequence isn't erased now just because you feel guilty. Your overreaction was wrong. you receive forgiveness from that, you apologize to the child for that, but that doesn't change that they have to have a consequence for what they did. So you stay in that authority in that.
Right.
It's very, very important.
And that's just teaching your children that it's okay to make mistakes, that you are taking responsibility for your own mistake, and again, then when they make mistakes, then they will, understand that they're taking responsibility for their own mistakes, and that there are consequences, like you said, to mistakes, and to walk that out, and walk it out as a family.
Right, and not lose your authority in it. That's awesome. What we're saying here is that you're going to make mistakes as a parent, and you're going to feel guilty at times. What you want to do is be able to shake off that guilt so that you're not making those same mistakes over and over again. Guilt is one of the reasons that you make those same mistakes over and over again. You don't allow yourself to progress through it because you're sitting in the guilt of it. And you take away not only your authority over your children, but the authority in your life that you have. So you really want to, it's a feeling, guilt, you can feel it. And even if you're feeling that, you need to still move forward in your authority. And after time, your thoughts, words, and actions will change to where you won't even feel that. I know for Dawn and I, it doesn't even have to be guilt for the way we're treating our children. It's guilt over the way we've spoken to each other or even somebody else. So you got to know that it's not always a direct, mistake that you've made with your children that can still create a lack of authority because of that guilt with your children. So no guilt allowed. We take our guilt fire extinguisher and we put that out right away. And Dawn said, recognize, reject, and replace. You'll hear a lot of that in our guide to parenting and our DVDs and CDs. That you recognize whatever that is, that thought that's coming that's creating that guilt. You reject it, and then you replace it with something. You always need to replace. And we'll talk more about that particular key of recognizing, rejecting, and replacing. But that's part of that process, and that guilt part is you've got to replace it. And even if you don't feel like you're the best parent in the world that day, you are the best parent to your children. God has given you those children. They're your children. And you are the best parent for them. You've just got to allow it to come out of you. And part of the way you do that is you state it. Whether you feel like it or not, you say it anyway. There's always hope, and there's always the gifts that God has given you to walk forward as a parent. So in our guide to parenting, as we always tell you, is where we expound upon this. You want to get that at www.bringthefamilytogether.com, our website. There's our radio show and other DVDs and CDs and resources. We always say to get the guide to parenting first because that's the foundation. That's got our book, Your Child is Already a Genius, Free Their Spirit, in it. It's got the 4 weeks of parenting exercises that are just phenomenal because they bring out the child in you and they help you bring out the child in your children. So you definitely want to get that, and it also has our 7 top keys in that also. It is such a privilege for Dawn and I to be able to share these tips with you. And Dawn, I know that we've both experienced the guilt in our parenting, haven't we?
Yep. So shake off the guilt and move on to the glory.
All right. God bless you and have an awesome day.